Okay. Hello, everyone, and a very big welcome to you. My name is Linda, for those I haven't met before, and welcome to the Mama Thrive series. Today is the very first workshop in the Mama Thrive series, which I'm running for the rest of the year, where I am bringing to us and to you some really, really wonderful experts in the world to share with us their knowledge and their expertise around a really wide variety of topics that I thought would be really exciting and interesting to dive into. So today's workshop is all about overcoming overwhelm in motherhood, and breathe in, breathe out, because gosh, don't we all know about overwhelm, whether we're feeling it every day or just some days? Or hello, Jennifer, pop yourself on mute if you're not already muted. Yes, so welcome to the series anyway. So I am Linda, for those of you who haven't met me before. I'm mama to 3 daughters. I'm also a life coach who about 10 years ago decided to start working exclusively with mums in my coaching practice. So I'd been coaching for a long time before I had children, but as a result of my own journey in motherhood and the massive personal transition that puts you into, which I wasn't really prepared for, I realized that there just wasn't a space for women to come to speak truthfully and to be held in a safe way. And so I decided to do that in my business. So anyway, that is how we kind of come about to do this Mama Thrive series. So today will be recorded. So if you're here live, you will also get the recording, so you can go back and re-listen to things that really meant something to you that maybe you didn't catch in the moment. Also, I know Louise is going to provide me a copy of the slides, which I will send out to everybody. So don't feel that you have to be scribbling things down and trying to catch up the whole time. You'll get that in your email that I'll send out tomorrow with the recording. There'll be a lot of people who are not going to come live today and are simply going to get the recording. So we want to make sure all of that is available to them. As we go through today, you are welcome to chat amongst yourself in the chat box. You'll see a chat box at the bottom of the screen. And perhaps it's actually a good idea, if you're able to, if you're not juggling kids and things in the moment, even maybe just say a quick hello in the chat box so that we can see that it's working well for you. Say hi, maybe where you are. Anyway, all through the workshop today, you can use the chat box to talk amongst yourselves, whatever you want to say about the content, but also if you want to ask a question or have something, to share with Louise, you can do that. So Cody, well done. Hi from Waiheke. Good job. And hi from Melbourne. Hi, Jennifer. It's lovely to have you here too. All right. So before we get on to things today, I always like to just take a moment to get us grounded together, for those of us who are here. And even if you're listening to the recording, take a moment, right? Often we have come in and brought all the energy and the chaos of motherhood behind us. It's really nice to take a moment right now to just put it aside and remind ourselves that for this time, in this moment, we are just here to be together. We are here to learn, we are here to share, we are here to grow and support. So if you are able to, in your space, take a moment to close your eyes. If you're not able to close your eyes where you are and with what you're juggling, that's okay. Just really focus in on a sense of stillness. And as we sit, I just want you to take a really nice deep breath in and a nice deep breath out. And again in and out. And as you breathe deeply in your own rhythm, allow the breath to soften your mind, calm your thoughts. Allow it to make your body feel still and grounded. I want to take a moment to acknowledge all of you for the time that you are taking today to be either here live with us or to be taking time out to catch up on the recording. I'm so pleased you have taken this opportunity to honour yourself, to honour your needs. I want you to take a moment to think about, why did you come today? Why did you sign up? What is it that you most want to learn or experience or gain from the fact that you are here? What intention would you like to hold for yourself today? And as we go through this workshop with Louise today, I want you to just check in with yourself every now and then and just ask yourself, what do I need to do or be in this moment to allow myself to meet that intention? Because I know I can speak for Louise and myself in this moment, that our aim in coming together today and sharing this workshop with you is we want you to walk away with exactly what you need today. So take a nice deep breath in and a nice deep breath out. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes again. Okay. And so that becomes a perfect moment for me to actually introduce the wonderful Louise East. Now, Louise is a certified mindset and life coach. She's also a matrescence facilitator. That's actually how Louise and I met in our journey and learning about matrescence. So it's a beautiful connection that I have with her through that work. She's also a mum, so she gets it. She gets all that this is about, and she really loves to work with mums who are overwhelmed and who want to let go of the overwhelm, let go of the guilt, let go of all the stuff we sometimes carry with us. So I was so happy when Louise accepted my invitation to come and present with us today and share her wisdom. As I said, our topic is overcoming overwhelm in motherhood, which is something that I know even now I still go through. No matter how much work I've done on myself, no matter how awesome a coach I might be, I still get sucked into overwhelm. So I'm personally really excited to receive all the wisdom from Louise today. So welcome, Louise. I'm going to hand over and let you jump in and unmute yourself.
Thank you so much, Linda. It's such a pleasure to be here. I love talking about overwhelm. I think it's a universal experience of mothers. And the way you described it is so true. Even when we've been working on it, and even when we feel like we have some strategies, you can still get sucked back into overwhelm. So it's always a good topic to revisit. I think what works in one phase of your life, you may need a different approach in another phase of your life. So I'm bringing a slightly different perspective today. I think what most people love, or what they think they need when they are overwhelmed, is they need time management. That's what they come to me saying. I'm so overwhelmed. I need to know how to manage my time better, or be more organized and efficient, and how do I schedule? And look, that is all part of it. But I find if you don't address some underlying reasons for overwhelm, all the time management and efficiency and planning in the world will not save you from getting back into overwhelm again shortly after. So as Linda said, she's going to be sending out an email after this with the replay. And part of that will also be a link to a guide that I have that goes through that sort of time management approach. So how do you get everything out of your head? How do you prioritize it? How do you look at what can be delegated? How do you schedule your time? So that's one side. But what I want to address today is the really juicy stuff, which is the stuff that sits underneath the time management and the things that keep pulling us back to a state of overwhelm, even when we know how to manage our time.
Brilliant.
So that's what I want to spend the time talking about today. And of course, if anybody has any questions about the resources that you get afterwards or about the session and you think of it later, you're very welcome to contact me and I can have a chat to you and answer those questions. So, yes, as Linda said, I'm a mindset and life coach for mums. This is one of the topics I love to talk about. I am a mum. I have a 6-year-old. I also am a stepmom to 3 young adults in their 20s. And I'm a super cool and young grandma to
I did not know
3 children.
that.
Yes. Yes, I have 3 grandchildren and 1 more on the way. We just celebrated the eldest's 2nd birthday on the weekend. So that was really exciting. So I have been experiencing this whole journey of motherhood and grandmotherhood from a few different perspectives over the last few years, and certainly know a lot about overwhelm myself from even before that. I'll tell you, I spent 15 years in the corporate world before I became a mum. And this is my first experience of overwhelm because I was constantly in a state of overwhelm, constantly. And I was a very perfectionistic high achiever who did know how to manage my time, but I could not save myself from regular bouts of burnout and exhaustion and overwhelm. And so it's taken me a long time to learn these strategies and not get into that place. Or if I am going towards that place, I can see it and pull myself back quite quickly now. But something to know is that overwhelm is intensified by motherhood. So I meet mothers who have always experienced overwhelm like I did, and then they are even more overwhelmed in motherhood. And I also meet mothers who felt like they had things pretty in control before they became a mother, and all of a sudden, all the strategies that they used to use do not work. So
It's really it makes me think about the fact that, we keep talking about time management and strategies and things like that, and that you're right, they are really helpful resources and structures, but they're not the solution, because no matter, you can, even in your corporate world, say, oh, they're so good at all that stuff, and yet
and yet,
I'm still getting sucked in. And so that's a really important
yeah.
thing for us all to acknowledge, that our sense of overwhelm is not a reflection of how well or poorly we're doing all the stuff,
No.
all that time management stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I often find that a lot of women who are very overwhelmed are that really high achiever type. I mean, that's the sort of women that I tend to work with a lot. They're high achievers. They've got big goals. They are efficient and productive, but they don't feel like it because of this state that they get themselves in. And I'll explain more about why that happens. So I want you to know that overwhelm is not entirely your fault. It's not from some lack of skill on your part. It's not because there's anything wrong with you. There are some real reasons that we feel overwhelmed, and today's session will help you start to unravel some of those. So like Linda said, there's going to be you'll get the slides later, because what I have done is I've included some reflection questions as we go, and I would encourage you to jot down anything on a piece of paper or notebook that comes to mind in the moment, but they may be exercises that you want to take away, or if you're watching the replay, pause and actually think about in a bit more detail. You don't have to watch this whole thing at once if you're watching the replay, or come back and watch bits of it again, because there's quite a lot here. This is a really big topic. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Let's hope that this all works really well. We did rehearse it.
We rehearsed and you kicked yourself out of the room. So
I know I did.
Let's not do that again.
I know. Here we go. Let's go.
That's beautiful.
Is that working?
Lovely. I see it perfectly. Well done.
All right. So overwhelm is basically when everything feels like too much to manage. And many women describe it to me like a sense of drowning. They just can't keep their head above water. It's often tasks that make us feel overwhelmed, but I find that when we get in that state of overwhelm, then we can also be overwhelmed by the thoughts and feelings that come up around that state of overwhelm. So it's just like layer upon layer. And when you're overwhelmed, you may find yourself doing one of two things. Some people, like myself, push harder. So they try to work harder, stay up later, do more. And they're not, I don't know if you've experienced this, but my brain is foggy when I'm overwhelmed. I'm not in my best state. So while I am working longer hours and, staying up later to try and get more things done, I'm actually not that productive. I don't know if you've ever experienced that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then on the other side, some people deal with overwhelm, or you may do a bit of both, by avoiding and procrastinating. So it's just too much to manage. So I'm almost paralyzed by this overwhelm and I can't do anything. But you can see in either way, either approach, you're not getting stuff done.
Which just feeds the overwhelm, right?
Exactly. It's a vicious cycle. So you're not getting stuff done. You're probably criticizing yourself for it, thinking, why am I so behind? I can't get on top of this. I'm really stuck here. And you're not operating at your most efficient. All those those heightened emotions and those critical thoughts are actually distracting you from your focus and your ability to achieve what you need to achieve. And if you just bear with me for a moment, do this exercise with me, because I think this is a really good illustration. If you can just imagine that all around you is your life, okay? So the people that you love, the people that you care for, the things you have to do, everything that is part of your life is around you in the room. And if you put your hands together like this, in your hands are all the thoughts and feelings associated with overwhelm. So what does that look like? That looks like the things that say, I can't cope. I'm drowning. I can't get through this. I don't have enough time. I'm so unproductive. You know, all those thoughts that you have, the panic, the anxiety, the worry, the critical thoughts. Can I just invite you to bring those thoughts and feelings to your face? So it's like this. I'm going to take my hands away so that you can see me talking or hear me properly. But if you have your hands in front of your face and you try and peer through your fingers at your life, it's really hard, isn't it? It's really hard to focus on what's going on in your life. It's hard to connect with people. It's hard to do anything when you're like this. That's what it's like when you're overwhelmed. It's like something is in your way.
I don't know if Cody or Jennifer felt this either, but when you asked us to hold our hands like that and then said, and then within that is like all the stuff, all the overwhelm and whatever, it's like literally my hands went, oh, heavy.
Felt heavy.
Like, I was just like, what? Like, seriously, I don't know if it was just me. So feel free to say in the chat box if it was just me or not. But literally, I just sort of felt my hands just go, oh, there's weight. There's something in that, right?
I love that. I love that because it is heavy. That's a great description of what overwhelm is like. It's heavy. But you can see here it blocks you from connection. It blocks you from seeing things clearly. It blocks you from, even focusing on anything in your life. So what we want to do is be able to keep that away from our face. That's what we're here to do. Now, I believe overwhelm comes from two places: the society and culture that we live in as mothers and our thoughts. Now, you'll notice I didn't put your to-do list on here because it's not your to-do list that's creating the overwhelm. It's the way you think about your to-do list. Now, there are some to-do list strategies to make your to-do list less overwhelming, but it ultimately comes back to the way we think about our to-do lists. And to be honest, society and culture actually feed into our thoughts, but I feel like it's such a significant impact that it deserves to be called out separately. Our thoughts create our reality. I don't know if you've ever seen anything like this before. This is something I work through with all my clients. The situation of our lives is neutral until we give it meaning. The things we have to do are neutral. They just are. What makes it good or bad or positive or manageable or overwhelming is the thoughts we have around that situation. So I listed off some of those thoughts when we were doing the exercise, right? The overwhelming thoughts. It's too much. I don't have time. I'll never get through it. I can't keep up. Those thoughts drive our feelings. So when you think about those things, how do you feel? Linda said heavy. That's a great word. I've heard from clients stressed, anxious. My heart races when I'm overwhelmed or I'm stressed. I feel tightness in my body. I feel foggy. I feel worried about what I can't get done. I feel guilty for the things that I'm not getting done. There's so many feelings that come up here. And then from that place, we choose actions. And sometimes when we're in this state of self-criticism and overwhelmed thinking, we actually choose actions that don't help us in the long run. For example, avoidance. So we might procrastinate and avoid things, which is great in the short term, means we don't have to deal with it. But in the long run, it doesn't help us get stuff done. And then that creates a result. If you thought about things differently, and I know this sounds really simple and it's much harder to do than it is to explain, but we'll come to that. But it's good to realize that the magic lies in your thoughts here. If you looked at your to-do list and you went, oh, that's so manageable. Let's just imagine this unicorn scenario. That's so manageable. Oh, I can absolutely do that. Those are the things that are most important to me. Then your feelings would be so different and you would choose different actions. So this is a really empowering sequence to be aware of, and to know that if you can identify the thoughts that you have around your state of overwhelm, you can actually shift some of the situation just from changing your thoughts. Now, obviously, there's some other work that needs to be done, and we're going to come to that. There would have been situations, I'm sure, well, you have a think. Are there situations in your life when you have not felt overwhelmed and someone else may have felt overwhelmed in that situation because of the way you thought about it? I'll give you an example. I love planning parties. I love it. I get fully into it. I do craft. I make the cake myself. I invite heaps of people. I love to cook for the week and, get everything ready. I love it. It is not overwhelming to me to have 40 people at a party and do the whole thing, because I get so much joy from it. But for someone else, they'd be like, heck no, I'm outsourcing this. Linda's
I'm like, yeah, I'm not you.
And there would be something that you wouldn't be overwhelmed with, Linda, that I would be overwhelmed with. So, it's because we think about it. So when I say party for 40 people, like Linda just went, ugh. So your thoughts around that scenario create the feeling, which then creates, okay, what am I going to do? Well, hopefully the constructive thing to do would be outsource it or stress about it and, get yourself stuck into it anyway. But for me, because I think really positively about it, I have only good feelings and it doesn't feel overwhelming. So we're all different, and it really comes back to our thoughts around the situation. So that's where the magic happens. So I'm asking you to reflect on what thoughts you have about your overwhelm. Now, you don't have to do this now, but some things might come to mind. Because if we can identify them, we can do something about them. And they can also help you see what needs to change in your life as well, practically. And we'll come to that. The key thing with your thoughts is any thoughts that you have are not bad as such, right? They're just either supportive in creating the sort of experience you want, or they're actually taking you away from it. But you're allowed to have your thoughts. So I think a really important thing is, whatever your thoughts are, don't fight it. Don't criticize yourself for it, but just acknowledge them. A really big one for me was, I used to say all the time, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. I can't do this. I'm never going to get through this. I don't have enough time was like a core thought that I had repeatedly. So what I had to learn to do was to go, okay, there's that thought. I don't have enough time. I'm thinking it again. And just accept that it was there. And then I would be compassionate towards myself. So I would say, all right, I'm having the thought that I don't have enough time. I'm not the only one that feels like this. I know other people feel like this too, and I'm okay. I will get through this. And then I choose a more supportive thought. So I literally rewrote that thought for myself to be, I have enough time for the things that are important. Now, I didn't 100% believe that at first, but I felt like it was possible. And so I used to just keep saying to myself, it's okay. I have enough time for the things that are important. Oh, there's that thought. I don't have enough time. Okay, I've thought it again. That's all right. But I do have enough time for the things that are important. And notice I didn't say I have enough time in general, because we can't do everything. But the distinction for me was, if I identify what's important, I can do those things. And that created a whole different scenario. That literally changed the way I manage my time. And it drastically decreased the frequency that I felt overwhelmed just by changing that thought. There was other things I did as well, but that was really, really pivotal for me. And one thing to know about thoughts is that we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of them are the same day to day. So if you've been thinking overwhelmed thoughts every day for a while, you're still going to think them. It's not going to be an instant, okay, now I am never going to think that I'm overwhelmed anymore. But the key is that those thoughts are okay. Those thoughts are allowed to be there. And the first thought you have is usually based on a pattern. And that's that repetitive thought, right? Our brains conserve energy by using repetitive thoughts. So that's okay. You can have the repetitive thought. The second thought is your choice. So just like I don't have enough time would keep coming into my mind, I go, okay, there it is. Acknowledge it, accept it, but I'm going to choose my next thought. Does that make sense? Yeah? The thoughts we have are not necessarily true. Most of them are patterns, and you do not have to believe them all. That's really liberating when you realize that. You do not have to believe all your thoughts. So when you tell yourself you can't cope, you don't have to believe that. That's not a fact. It might mean you haven't found evidence of how you can cope yet, but you don't have to believe it. If you find it difficult to separate yourself from these thoughts and accept them, something that you can do is a really simple little technique. And you might want to write this down. I don't have this on the slide, but I'm just thinking of telling you this now. If you notice the thought, for example, I'll use my example, I don't have enough time. I would say to myself, I'm having a thought that I don't have enough time. So rather than making it very personal, I don't have enough time, now I'm an observer. I'm not the thought. I'm the person having the thought. I'm having a thought that I don't have enough time. And then the second step is I notice I'm having a thought that I don't have enough time. So the first one is I'm having a thought, and then what it is. The second one is I notice I'm having a thought that, whatever it is. And that two-step process just gives you a little bit of distance. And you might, if you're very in tune to how you feel, you might actually feel the intensity drop a little bit when you do that. So I use that a lot. I think that's really useful.
That's lovely.
Simple too. If you just practice it a few times when you're not overwhelmed, it's really hard to remember these strategies when you're in a state of heightened emotions. So practice when you're not. Okay. So now we're going to, sorry, before I go there, let me just say, now we're going to have a look at some of the other things that really contribute to our sense of overwhelm. They're the underlying reasons we keep getting pulled back in like a magnet. Okay, there's 4 of them that I'm going to share with you. And the first one is the perfect mother myth. This is one of my favorite topics, and I think it's probably one of Linda's favorite topics too.
Yes. Well, he is.
Yes. So do you like the 1950s housewife pictures?
I love it. Yes.
Because that is what comes to mind for me when I think of this perfect mother myth. I want you to know, ladies, that overwhelm is not all on you. Okay. Sure, I'm telling you to manage your thoughts. Sure, we're telling you strategies. I'm giving you strategies you can use, but it is not all your fault, because in modern Western society, we are set up to believe that we have to meet these unrealistic standards. And it is we call it the perfect mother myth. You can call it whatever you like, but that's what I call it. She is fictional, unattainable, and she makes us feel like we're not good enough and that we have to keep doing more. And it's the thoughts. Remember the links to the thoughts. So it's the thoughts we have around what we need to be that is driving our sense of overwhelm and creating this need to drive more action in us. This perfect mother myth has been instilled in us since we were very small. Watching our own mothers, watching TV shows, listening to stories where the mother's role is, outlined, watching other people's mothers, hearing comments from that old lady at the bank, whatever it might be. There are subtle messages that we're absorbing through our life. Advertising is a big one. about what a mother should be and what a woman should be. By the time we get to being a mother, it's so embedded in our thinking that we think it's just the way things are. And so it can be very helpful to really question whether you are holding on to this myth yourself, believing this myth yourself, and then whether you want to continue to. Because remember, our thoughts are not all true. Just because we think this is what a mum should be doesn't mean that's true. This is what the perfect mum myth involves. Now, this is largely based on the work of Professor Andrea O'Reilly. So the perfect mother is the primary carer for her children 24/7. She always puts herself last. So she puts everybody else's needs first. She's self-sacrificing. Selfless is a word that I often see. She trusts experts, so she has to always go and research and find out what everybody else thinks she should do rather than trusting herself. This is my favorite. She is fully satisfied, fulfilled, completed, and composed in motherhood. I mean, it's almost laughable when you think of it in the context of your own reality, isn't it? That means she needs nothing else outside motherhood. She never gets angry. She's always calm. She's not even ruffled. Think of that 1950s housewife. She's always smiling on the outside. She lavishes excessive time, energy, and money in the raising of her children. It's all about them. And this comes back to that whole thing about we go shopping and we go shopping for ourselves and we come back with things for our children. No, we buy our children all the latest clothes and we don't buy us. So we're still wearing underwear from 15 years ago. Now in the modern world, she is financially independent as well. So not only is she the perfect mum, but she's economically contributing to the household. She's a successful career. And you might have heard this saying, we need to work like we don't have children and mother like we don't work. That's completely at odds.
It's ludicrous, right? We have this. Yeah.
She is responsible for everything in the domestic realm, including the health of her relationship with her partner. And she has fantastic friendships that she invests in and all her own interests, because mothering in modern society and Western society is undervalued. It's seen as kind of nothing. So you have to have other things in your life to be seen as interesting and doing something productive.
Ding.
I mean, it makes me kind of riled up to talk about it because it's so unrealistic to think that one person could be this all the time.
And I mean, as you and I have conversed around in our, trainings around matrescence and things together, as the expectations that we hold around anything in life, but in this context, motherhood, and these expectations and beliefs we hold about what this perfect mother is, which is ludicrous when we put it on paper, and yet we buy into so much of this, right? Yeah. So the expectations that we hold and then what we actually experience are so different. And this gap or this chasm in between is what causes us to feel overwhelmed or like we failed or like we're not good enough, because we're trying to meet this perfect mum model, which is a load of rubbish, quite frankly.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So can you see, if you have all the time management skills in the world, you're the most efficient person in the world, you would still not be able to do this every day. It's just impossible. So that's what I mean when I say time management is one part, but really, if you don't address these underlying things, you're just going to get pulled back into a state of overwhelm like a magnet, just like zip. Yes, exactly. So it's the gap between this ideal and our reality that causes us creates a lot of thoughts around how we're not good enough, how we're not measuring up, and how we need to do more, which then leads to a sense of overwhelm. But the good thing is, this is fiction, right? This is fiction. So you get to choose whether you believe in this or whether you want to continue to believe in it. You might not even be aware that you believe in this right now, but I'd really encourage you to reflect on that and reflect on where you're feeling that you should be doing these things, where you need to do these things, where you need to prove that you can do these things? Because I feel like there's a lot, when I speak to my clients, there's a lot of feelings of needing to prove themselves. Like, I'm capable. There's no doubt you're capable. It's just that no one can do all of this all the time. You might feel successful in this for a short amount of time, but it's just not sustainable. Some people say, I feel like I'm there, but then they quickly don't feel like they're there again. So it's just not sustainable. And you'll notice you might notice, if now that you're aware of it, when you talk to people in the medical system, in the schooling, education system, the government, you pay attention to messages from the government, these sort of messages are reinforced all over the place. There's a lot of responsibility put on mothers to be the go-to person, the sole, have all the responsibility. And there's also even mother blame when things don't go well. So if you think about whenever there's a problem with a child, or even as an adult, you think about adults in the news who get in trouble, so they're in trouble with the law. Often there will be messages around, so what was their mother like? Was she too attentive? Was she too cold? Was she too submissive? Was she too strict? It's like, what did their mother do to them to get them to be like that? We need to just release this pressure. So I'm asking you to think about how many of the things on your plate are a result of what you think you should be doing. I haven't met a lady yet who hasn't had a few of these.
I always say to my clients that when they hear that word should in either what they are actually saying or what their internal voice is saying, that's a really great red flag or an indicator that whatever they're doing or thinking is actually not what they really want or need. It's coming from some sort of external pressure or expectation or somebody else's view of the world. And that word should is like the magic flag that goes, woohoo, pay attention. Yeah.
That's it. That's excellent. Yes, I agree. Should is a fantastic way to look for these things. So how many of those things on your plate are a result of what you think you should be doing? And you can ask yourself for each of those things, is this something that I really want to do? Check in then with yourself. Do I want this? Am I making, gourmet lunch boxes every day because everybody else is? Or because I really believe that's what I want for my own child? Am I throwing lavish birthday parties because I feel like I should because everyone else is getting them? Or is it because it truly brings me joy? When my stepdaughter went to plan her daughter's second birthday, she said to me, the only children's parties I've been to are yours, and yours are so so amazing. I don't know if that's what I need to do. And I said, you don't need to do that. I do a lot of that for me because I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. And look, when you're in your 40s, how many birthday parties do you get to plan for yourself? So I have to live vicariously through children. So you don't have to do that. 2-year-olds don't care what their party looks like. They don't even care what the cake looks like, as long as they get to eat it. In the 1950s, Sir Donald Winnicott came up with this concept, the good enough mother. He said children don't need a perfect mother. He said that they need a good enough mother, a mother who helps her children learn resilience to live in the imperfect world we live in. And to show them that even when they make mistakes, they are lovable and enough, just like we are lovable and enough in our own mistakes and imperfections. So he talks about tolerable failures. Now, I'm not talking about neglect, obviously, but I'm talking about the little ways every day we don't get it right. For example, we misinterpret what they say and we don't meet their need the first time, or we don't hear them when they're calling us when they fall, or we can't buy them the toy that they want, or, they have to go to school when they don't want to. We make them do their homework when they'd rather play. Like all those disappointments in life, those little disappointments that, can get bigger as they get older and they're more developmentally able to handle it. That's building resilience in our children and showing them that even when things don't go the way they want, they will be okay. that they're loved, that they're safe, that their feelings can't hurt them, that, you know, I mean, obviously they're uncomfortable, but they're not going to have long-term damage if we deal with them. And this is what a good enough mother does. So by Winnicott's assertion, a perfect mother is actually unhelpful and unhealthy for a child, because it sets them up to think that everything's going to be like that. And how will they cope in the real world when people who don't love them like their mother are not as nice to them or don't prioritize their needs? See, we can have those tolerable failures in the context of our loving relationships. And if they see you embrace your own imperfections and your inability to do everything perfectly, then they can know that that's okay. So I think this is a really important concept. So something you can reflect on or journal on later, I think this is a really big one and you may want to spend some more time on it. If you let go of all the shoulds, what do you truly believe makes a good mum for you and your family? And what do you value most in your life? So not only in terms of your family, so what do you want your family, your children to remember you for, but also for yourself, what do you value? Do you value fun and adventure, or do you value stillness and calm? There's not any right answers. It could be absolutely anything. It could be learning and growth. It could be anything. But what do you value for yourself? Because you're not just a mum, you're a whole person. And then what can you let go of if you think about that perfect mum list?
So Louise, I'm going to pause you on this slide for a moment because I think it's going to speak quite beautifully to both Jennifer and Cody right now, because there's been a little bit of chat box stuff happening that I would like to share with you. I'll read it out to you because I think these questions are going to be beautiful things for them both to reflect on in context of this. So Cody shared a minute ago, she said, so many things to do and hard when you feel you can't do things for yourself and take time away from those other things, right? So there's, again, this thing that fed into the perfect mother of everybody else has to come before me. And if I put me first, I'm somehow taking away or depriving others.
Yeah.
And Jennifer said, I feel like because I don't work, I should be taking on more of the responsibilities around the house and caring for the kids 24/7. I always put everyone else first.
Oh, let me just address that one, Linda, quickly, because I love that comment, Jennifer. That comes up a lot in my conversations with mums. And I really love to think of the distinction between caring work, mothering work, and household tasks, domestic duties. Even if you had no children, there would still be domestic duties. So domestic duties are not the same as mothering. Look, there might be more of them because of mothering, but you still need to make food, clean kitchen, take garbage out, all those things, even if you don't have children. And so why are they all a woman's job, Every man who lives in a house needs to do those things, whether he has children or not. It's just something to think about. And I totally get the note that you don't work, but you do work. I just say you do work. Taking care of children is the hugest job. It's 24/7, right? You don't get any holiday pay. You don't get to come home and switch off. Yeah, you work. Mm-hmm. That's the thought, right? I don't work. That's a thought.
I don't work, therefore I don't deserve to have time out. I don't deserve to do things for me.
Yeah.
Right?
That's it.
No. And Cody's reflecting in the conversation we've been having, I sort of said to her, about what would it take for her, or how would it feel for her if she began to care for her own needs a bit more? And she said, there is so much guilt with putting yourself first. Yeah. She says, I'm working on that, as I need basic things like sleep.
Yeah.
So I'm making choices towards my well-being.
That's amazing, Cody.
Yeah.
And it is, the guilt, there's a whole lot of strategies you can use for guilt. The thoughts, that process I gave you around the thoughts works for guilt as well, because the thoughts that you're having create guilt, the guilty feelings. And we'll talk a bit more about honoring your needs in a little while. But I think if you can tolerate the guilt, like allow the guilt to be there, know that the guilt is neither right or wrong. You're just experiencing it. It's a bit of a pattern that you're having, and then take those small steps anyway, it gets easier. And then also try and rewrite some of those thoughts. But it does get easier. We have to kind of take action before we feel like we can. Otherwise, our brain never has any evidence that it'll be okay. I can speak from personal experience. Like, I never used to do anything for myself, but now it's really quite easy and I don't even feel guilty anymore. But that's been a progression. You have to just do the little step by step to get to that point. It gets easier. Sometimes I feel guilty, depends what it is. Like, I'm going away for the weekend to see my parents, and I do feel guilty about that because my son gets very distressed when I'm not here. But little things I feel guilty about. All right, thank you for your comments. I've actually got the chat box here now so I can see it a bit better, although I don't think I can change. Oh yeah, that works. All right, number 2. Thanks, Linda.
Okay.
Number 2 is comparison. When we are living up to an external standard like the perfect mother myth, we tend to compare ourselves externally to figure out how we're going. It's just how it works. Because we're not coming back to an internal measure of success. We're looking at an external measure of success. So we look externally to see, am I meeting that measure of success? And obviously social media is a big one here. And even when you look at the mums in the, school pickup or whatever it might be, daycare pickup, you're only seeing a little snippet of their lives. And that's the biggest thing we need to remember. If we look at other people and we just measure, like, for example, if you came to one of my birthday parties and you were like, wow, Louisa's got it all together. She's so organized. She can throw this big party in amongst her whole life. That looks really great and might make you feel pressured, but you don't know that I've dropped a whole lot of things over the previous month to make that happen in a nice, manageable way. And there may be other things that I'm not doing so well in. In fact, there are. So the question here is, how could you know if you were successful without comparing yourself to others? Right from school, we're taught to compare ourselves from others when we're very little. If you even think about how we look at babies and their progress, we're always comparing, like, did they reach this milestone? Have you got this app that tells you what they're supposed to do? Join a group where you can talk about how quickly your child walked or fed or whatever it is. Drop their nap. And then it goes to school and we start asking children to visibly demonstrate what they can do all the time and then compare themselves to everybody else. What level reader do you have? Which maths group are you in? Like, it's all very visible external comparison. So it's really no wonder that we're like this. We were made to be like this through society. But the thing with motherhood is it's very personal. And if we're not going to compare ourselves to the perfect mum, but we're going to come back to what we believe is a good mum for ourselves, then we don't need to compare ourselves to others. So in a broad sense, that's the answer to this question, but I'll let you determine more specifically what that looks like. But how are you going to know if you're successful without comparing yourself to others? For me, I feel successful at the end of every day if I have addressed the most important things that I determine are the most important. And that's not a massive long list. It might be 2 things for the day that I really want to get done. And if my son feels loved and connected, we're all fed. It can be really simple. But what makes you feel successful? Because the minute we start comparing ourselves, we start having those thoughts that I don't measure up, I'm not the same, why am I not like that? We start spiraling into overwhelm.
The question that comes up for me when you say that too is also then to say, and why does this matter to me?
Yeah.
Just to check in with, why is this thing important to me? Just to do that double check that we haven't sneakily brought in, that it's about someone else or something else. It's like,
yeah,
you say my son is loved and connected. Why is that important to me? Well, it's important because,
yeah,
my children are fed. Why is that important to me? is it important to me that, it's fed in a particular way? No, just they're fed. They're fine. They ate. It doesn't matter. They're okay.
That's right. Exactly. Look, my son would be happy if he got to eat porridge for dinner every night. Thank you, Linda. Okay, number 3 is asking for help. So this is something that gets in the way of us releasing overwhelm all the time. It is so hard as mums to ask for help. And that's because if we believe in the perfect mother myth, even subconsciously, we believe that we shouldn't need help, that we should be doing it all ourselves. That's what the perfect mother myth is all about. But we're not meant to do this alone. It's okay to ask for help. Probably the biggest reason that people talk to me about for not asking for help is that they don't want to be seen as a bad mum or not coping. And I want you to really challenge yourself and think about how you perceive a friend of yours who asks you for help. Do you automatically think she's not coping? Do you start judging her as a bad mum? Because we're usually infinitely more kind to other people than we are ourselves. I'm guessing that you probably don't. You might feel like, okay, great, she's asked for help. And you might even feel, yes, I want to help her. But you're probably not criticizing her and thinking, oh gosh, she's really not coping now. What an awful mum. When we have the thought that we're a bad mum when we ask for help, it makes it really hard to ask for help. It makes it shameful to ask for help. And many women don't ask for help because they can't bring themselves to admit that they need it because of what it means to them. The other thing that comes up a lot is just feeling like you might be rejected. So what do I do if someone says no to me? That's going to feel really bad. Or I'm going to feel guilty that I asked, like I burdened them or inconvenienced them. And I really loved to share the perspective around whose responsibility it is to do what in this scenario. So your responsibility is to know what you need and ask for it. That's yours. The other person's responsibility is to decide whether they can help you and to manage their own reaction around your request. And then it comes back to you, and your responsibility is to manage your reaction to their response. But you don't need to determine their answer. And it is actually okay for someone to say no, because if someone is saying no to you, that's saying to me, well, I mean, look, there's a whole lot of scenarios, but just generally, if someone is able to say no to you and you respect that, that is actually setting you up for a more supportive relationship in future. Because if you have someone who is begrudgingly saying yes to you and underneath is feeling resentful, then that is not a person who genuinely wants to help you. That's not a great relationship. But if you've got someone who knows that they can say no, like I literally can't do it. Sometimes people say no because they don't have the capacity, they don't have the confidence to do what you're asking them, whatever. It's not just because they don't like you. Usually it's a valid reason. And they know that you'll accept that, then that sets them up for you to be able to ask again in another instance, and them to be able to give you an honest answer again. You don't want begrudging yeses. So no is not necessarily scary, but we assign a lot of meaning to it. And the other thing that people say to me is that they feel like they have to repay the helper. So if they're really overwhelmed and they're asking for help, they don't want that person to ask them for help back, because how on earth will they manage that on top of all the things that are already making them overwhelmed?
That is one of the biggest things that I come up against too, right? And, and what I tend to say is we all need to adopt a much more universal perspective about giving and receiving of help, that it's not a literal exchange one-on-one, right? So if you come to me and ask for help, I don't have to do it in return, but someone else, it'll go to someone else will ask, or I'll ask someone else, and somehow between us all we all end up okay, and that I don't have to feel like I owe you or that you owe me. And we just kind of need to let go of that very transactional mentality about it.
Absolutely. And even the recognition that most of our relationships are very long term.
Mm.
So why do we feel this pressure to repay the favor in the short term? Like you looked after my child, so now I need to look after your child in the next 2 weeks. Most of our relationships are long term. Over time, it evens out, right? You're going through a hard time now, they're going through a hard time in a year, it evens out. So yeah, I love that. I agree with you. I think we need to just think of the bigger picture and the longer term in these things.
And right now my capacity might be greater. I might have more time and energy to give to others, and later on it'll be someone else, and
That's right.
It all works out. It's all okay.
Exactly. But the asking for help is hard because of the thoughts we have around it. This is a very, very good example of how our thoughts can get in the way. So if this is you, really examine what are you thinking about asking for help and how that is not helping you get the help. Now, I always like to say to people, asking for help is actually a sign of strength. It shows that you know yourself, you know your limits, you know what you're good at. We play to our strengths, we get help for the rest. It shows that you respect yourself enough to look after your well-being. And let me tell you that more women everywhere need more examples of women looking after their well-being. Because when you do it, someone else goes, maybe it's okay for me to do it too. And that goes for the third point, which is asking for help shows that you have the courage to let yourself be authentic and vulnerable. So you let people see you in the state you are in, that you actually do need help. And it is hard to be authentic and vulnerable. But again, more women need to see other women being authentic and vulnerable. And every time I've been authentic or vulnerable more so, because I think, hopefully I'm authentic all the time, but vulnerable especially, every time I've been vulnerable, it's amazing how many people come back and say, oh, me too. Or they feel then they can share. We all need more vulnerability in our lives. So can you see asking for help as a strength instead of a weakness, so that you can ask for help? And look, maybe it's about the people you're asking for help. Maybe you need to think carefully about who has the capacity, who has the inclination, who do you trust? There's a whole lot of stuff that you can do there. But if you're not asking for help at all, what's the thinking that's getting in the way? Is it the perfect mum there? Linda, you want to say something?
I just want to share it. So here's an example of asking for help for me for a moment. So I'm pretty good at asking for help, in my community and, school stuff. But recently I was in a situation where I had to ask for help from people I've never even met. Right, that stretched my comfort zone big time, because my daughter goes to school. My eldest daughter goes to school in town. For people who don't know me well, I live on an island in New Zealand, and so my daughter commutes to a school in town to go to school. And I was in a position where our 6 a.m. ferry is being cancelled, and I could no longer get her with ease to her very early morning netball training. And so I literally had to write to school and say, could you please send this email on my behalf to all the parents on this netball team that I have not yet met? And the email said, here's who I am. Here's the situation I find myself in. Here is what I can't solve by myself. If anyone could ever have my daughter sleep at their house on Wednesday nights, please tell me, because I can't do this by myself. And it really stretched my comfort level. So I'm pretty good at asking for help, but this was a big thing for me to just blanket email to a bunch of people I don't know to say, this is what I need. If you can help. If you can't, it's totally fine too. But if you don't ask, you don't get, right?
Yeah.
And so, so that was an example for me that really stretched my limits on saying, I can't do this by myself. I need to ask for help. Here we go.
What a great example. And I can only imagine how that would have impacted the women, probably we're talking about women here, so let's say women who read that and went, wow, she asked for help like that. Maybe I can ask for help.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's a really good way of and again, like you said, it's okay if they all say no. It's okay
Yeah,
if nobody can help me. You know, it's not that there's this expectation that you must help me because I've asked, but it's
mm,
like, if I don't ask, I can't receive, I can't be supported. Yeah. And so
exactly.
you just have to put it out there and see what happens. And then what I hope is it then makes it easier, as you said, for them, not necessarily to ask me, but to ask others when they, you know, could you pick up my child? Would you be able to, you know, all these sorts of things. And yeah, it gets easier the more you practice. That's one thing I'm definitely going to say
Definitely.
for everyone. The more you put this into practice, the easier it gets. Because, you know, a few years ago, I never would have sent that email. That would have just felt too much. Yeah. But I am getting very good at this.
And if you're getting really serious about reducing overwhelm in your life, I mean, we all have areas where we could use the help. So you'll get to a point where you kind of have to do this to break through that next level of overwhelm, because we can't do it by ourselves.
So what if we all got so good at this that instead of waiting until we were in crisis and we were in total overwhelm, what if we all got so good at asking for help that we actually did it as a, you know, preventative step, right? That we were
Yeah.
asking for help earlier
Yeah.
and therefore not reaching overwhelm because we actually brought in the support before we tipped over the line. Like, how magic would that be?
I know. And if you think about it, people generally want to help. Most people want to help. And if they can't capacity wise at that time, or they're not confident in what you're asking, then that's fair enough. But I think the general feeling from most people is that they're happy to help. And research actually shows that helping others boosts your self-worth and, you know, increases all those positive feelings between people and deepens connections. And to give you an example, I think I shared this in my Facebook group recently. I had to bake my granddaughter's birthday cake and my oven is broken. So one of my friends offered that I could come to her house and use her kitchen for the day so I could bake these 3 cakes to make the birthday cake, which was great. And then my other friend, when I told her I was going to do this, she's like, why didn't you ask me? So she wanted me to ask her for help, which was really sweet. And I had a reason for using one person's kitchen over another. But, you know, she actually wanted to help. And then I've got a friend who's having a lot of health issues at the moment. And I have been saying to her repeatedly, please let me know if I can take your child to school or pick them up. They live very close by. It's no hassle at all. I'm at the same school, standing there. Their child walks past me. I'm like, please let me know because I can do that. And I have 2 car seats. So it's really easy. And she didn't take me up on that, even though I knew she needed it for a very long time. And I kept thinking, why won't she just accept my offer of help? So sometimes it's not just asking, but it's also accepting help, because I literally would have been delighted to do that. No pressure on me at all, but she felt like she couldn't, you know, and now she has, and now she's asked me a few more times because it gets easier.
Yep.
But it's getting over that hurdle of, oh my gosh, it's such a burden. I don't want you to go out of your way. I'm like, it's literally the same street and the same school. It's not out of my way. Physically not out of my way. I drive past your house. So yeah, it's like people want to help. Women have a craving for community. We want to be together and work together and help each other. We just aren't in that situation in society. We have to kind of build that ourselves. So here's some questions for you to reflect on now or later. How can you reframe your thoughts about asking for help so that asking for help feels good for you? Or at least feels less bad in the short term. And what exactly do you need help with? And who can you ask? All right, let's have a look. I'm just checking the time. We're going all right. Now, the last area that constantly gets us pulled back into overwhelm is not honoring our needs.
Cody, this is for you.
Yes. And on the surface, this can look like needing to do more. But what we don't realize is that always putting ourselves last means that we are in a constant depleted state. And that does not make us does not help us do the things we need to do. There has to be space in our lives for us. If you think of a battery analogy, you know, or a device, You charge your devices, don't you? To 100% a lot of the time, so that they work for a long time after charging. But in reality, what's happening to us is that we don't recharge ourselves all day. We might get a little bit of time to recharge ourselves here and there. And we wake up each day recharged to sort of 50 to 70% maximum. We're starting in a depleted state. So it's no wonder that we feel overwhelmed when we're already not operating at our best. And then we've got all the pressure and all the things. We need to be able to make sure that we're managing ourselves and our own well-being so that we can meet the demands of life. Now, I feel like a lot of this comes from the good girl lessons that we get as young children. I don't know if all of you can relate to that. I think most women can. You know, we were taught to put others first, to not make a fuss, to say yes when someone needs something from us, to be considerate, to always be thinking of other people's needs, to not expect too much, not demand too much, not voice our opinion too loudly, just follow the rules, do what everybody else expects. And these things all lead us to ignore our own needs and put ourselves last, which is the same. And the perfect mother myth does the same thing, right? It tells us that our needs need to come last because perfect mums are self-sacrificing. Everybody else comes first. And, you know, we love being a mum so much, we never need a break from it. Never. It's so fulfilling. It's all I need. That's what it's telling us. So then no wonder we don't pay attention to our own needs. You know, these are the thoughts that we're having. So we get caught up in people pleasing, and we get caught up in the fact that we have to earn the right to have time out. Have I done enough yet? I haven't ticked everything off my to-do list, so I can't take a break. I was an absolute work before play person for most of my life. Like, I felt like I could not sit down until everything was done. But you know what? Everything is never done. Seems so obvious. Took me like 20 years to learn it. Everything is never done. And when I used to sit down to have some time to myself, when I had things on my to-do list, I felt so agitated. Have you ever experienced that? Like, internally, you cannot settle thinking about all the things that need to do. It wasn't relaxing anyway. I found myself trying to multitask. Like, I couldn't even watch TV. I had to be doing something while I watched TV. If I'm reading a book, I'm rereading the same page over and over and over again, because I just didn't believe that it was right for me to be having a break, even if I was forcing myself. We've got to learn to create space in our lives for us to let ourselves recharge. If you are well, you will find that you get less overwhelmed. And you also think more clearly and be more confident to be able to put some boundaries in place when needed. You all know when you're exhausted, you just don't think very clearly, right? You say yes very quickly to things, or you get upset easily. It just makes everything worse. Everything is worse. Let me just.
And you don't need anyone else's permission. Like, when I listen to you saying your stories about how you used to feel, there's this real sense of needing permission to take that time, needing to have accomplished something before you're allowed, or having someone else say it's okay. And it's like, and especially as mothers, to remind ourselves that actually we don't need to be granted this by anyone else. We actually just need to stop and say, you know what, I actually really need to go and sit outside with my cup of tea and just step out for a bit, and then I'll come back. And it's okay that the dishes are in the sink, and it's okay that I didn't get to sweep the floors. I mean, my floors look awful. Oh well. You know, like, it's okay. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah. And you know, those things that are weighing on you, like the beliefs, a lot of people do have beliefs, a lot of beliefs around the cleaning. So the thoughts around cleaning, the house has to be clean every day. So what is clean in your mind? I'd be really examining that. Does it have to be that way? Does it have to look like it's out of some home interior design magazine? Really? What for? Why?
How is that helping me? How is that helping me feel well and balanced in my world?
Yeah, that's right. So just like you said, Linda, I want to do something is a good enough reason. And a lot of women don't feel like that. They feel like they have to earn their rest. They have to earn their time out. but you can do something purely because you want to, not because you deserve it, not because someone says you should, not because, there's nothing else to do, which never happens. It's just because you want to. And resting is seen as lazy in modern society, but resting is actually productive because, again, if you think of that battery analogy, if we are letting ourselves get to zero on the recharge, on the capacity of the battery, I can't even think what the right word is. If you let yourself get to zero, you won't be able to do anything. I mean, how many times have you heard women say that their bodies gave up because they were so depleted and they started having real health issues? Something stops us eventually. So resting is important to protect our well-being and to ensure that we can keep going. And also just because as humans, we deserve to rest. It seems like that goes away when you become a mum.
Jennifer and Cody, I'm going to ask both of you just to type a number into the chat box. And I want you to tell me what number is your battery today, now. No judgment, no anything. I just want a number. 2. Yep. 40%. Yeah. So is that 2%, Jennifer, or are we going 2 out of 10? So we're going to call you 20%. Yeah, 20%, 20%, 40%, right? And it's still reasonably early in our days. And I fully hear you and feel you, because I know those days where I'm at 20%, 40%. But can you really hear what Louise is saying about the absolute importance of caring for your own battery? Because it's not sustainable to be sitting at 20 and 40% as a woman and as a mother. Yeah.
It's very hard to be the mother you want to be when you're constantly depleted. I mean, I know I'm way more irritable, snappy, impatient. I have much less fun. I have no time for fun. I just wanted to get this thing done when I'm tired.
And everything feels harder. I know for me, when I am in that 20%, 40% zone and I'm feeling so maxed out and so thinly stretched, then everything else feels hard.
Yeah.
I cried at the dentist a few weeks ago because I was having a week where I was so depleted and so just burnt out in my world for a whole bunch of reasons. And I got to this dental hygienist appointment at 9:30, and she looked at me and she went, "Oh, we were expecting you at 9." I was like, "What do you mean? My diary says 9:30. Like, I never put it in wrong." I'd missed my appointment. Now, big picture, it was no big deal, right? They understood. We rescheduled, no dramas. But seriously, I sat there and the lips are quivering and the eyes. I left. I walked outside to this bench that's near a little shop nearby that looks out over the ocean, and I put my sunglasses on and burst into tears in the middle of the village we live in, because it was just, and that's for me a reflection of that situation. Really wasn't a big deal, but my ability to process it and cope with it and roll with it was non-existent because my battery was empty.
Great example.
Yeah.
And Jennifer's just put a great comment in. She says, absolutely, I'm getting better and working on what I need to stop getting overwhelmed. The past 2 weeks has been a battle with kids and myself being sick and not getting the rest or break that I normally would. I love that, Jennifer, because sometimes that's what mum life is, isn't it? There are times when we just have to press on. If our kids are sick and we're sick, it feels so unjust that we cannot rest properly when we're sick. I just get so upset about that sometimes. I'm just like, I just want to lie down. But you know what? I think so sometimes it's not ideal. That's reality. But we can look for then how do we, as soon as we can, how do we get an opportunity to rest rather than, okay, I'm better now, just keep barreling on. All right, I've got out of that season. I've got the kids back to daycare or whatever it might be, and I'm just going to take this time for myself. And this is something I've been working a lot on over the last year or two, is noticing the ebbs and flows in my schedule. So when I have a busy week, I make sure that I have a quieter week the next week, and I purposely schedule that. And I don't get relief in that busy week sometimes, depending on what I've got on. Sometimes it's just like that. Things all happen at the same time, or your child is sick and it just makes it intense. So you look for little moments, but the bigger relief comes after. And for me, I just know that it's coming. So it's not ongoing. Previously, I would have just kept going. kept going, the next week would be the same, the next week would be the same, and I would not have allowed myself a break. But now I go, you know what? No, this week I'm going to have coffee with my friend. I'm not starting work till 11. I'm going to, and everyone's different in what they can do. It's just being intentional and knowing it's okay. Managing those thoughts that come up. So I've said here, boundaries are self-care, because I think we could all use some extra boundaries in our life. I don't know anyone who couldn't use some extra boundaries in their life. Boundaries around your time, boundaries around what you say yes and no to, boundaries around where you invest, which relationships you invest your attention and time and energy into. If you've got relationships that are really draining in your life, difficult if it's your children or partner, but if you've got other people in your life, but just being really conscious of what's sucking your energy and draining your battery, and how can you draw some boundaries around that, either lessen the time or, get rid of it altogether if it's possible. That's a really good thing to think about. It's very easy to just say yes to things without considering our capacity or energy levels or even desire to do something. And I love to use my body as an indication. And I'd invite you to do this with me. I'll just change the slide. Your body is always sending you messages. So here, do this with me if you like to. Just think about something that you have to do that you really don't want to do. You got something on your plate right now, you really hate it, you feel like you should do it, you don't want to do it. Have you got that in your mind? Okay, now just think about that. Really think about it. Put yourself there, mentally close your eyes if you need to, and notice what's happening to your body as you think about that. Do you feel any tightness? Do you feel any pain? For me, when I think about things that are not right for me, I get a tightness in my chest. My breathing goes shallower. And sometimes I even get little shooting pains in my arm. But we're not trained to tune into these things. We're trained to say yes, because that's what good girls do. And we ignore what's right for us. So that's a good way. Jennifer said, you felt more tense, you grind your teeth. Yep, your breathing changes. See that? So sometimes when I was not good at tuning into what was right for me, I would use this as a way to make a decision. So I would think about what I'm trying to decide about. And I think you have to think about either the positive or the negative. So the yes or the no, you can't just think about the question, because then it could be either way. So you've got to think, I'm going to do this. I'm doing this. Like, I'm going to this social gathering that I've been invited to for school, right? Let's say. How do I feel about that? And you just let your body give you the message. And then if you do the opposite, so now if you think about something that you love to do, maybe even something for yourself, just think about something that's really great and just really mentally get yourself there, and then notice what happens to your body. Do you feel a relaxing? An opening of the chest? It's a little bit different for everyone, so you have to learn your own signs. But for me, my chest just expands. I feel my shoulders and neck relax. No pain, calm. So that can be a really good tool. If you start to learn to tune into your body never lies. Your body knows what's good for you, but we've got to get used to hearing it. Cody says your shoulders relax back and it's easier to breathe. I think the breathing one is almost universal. I find that nearly everyone I do this with says that their breathing changes. So that's probably a really good indicator. And then you'll have your own other little indicators. But your body knows. So that can be a good one. Sometimes when we're overwhelmed, our thoughts are racing, and it can be hard to get out of that. So if you come back into your body, you can get clarity.
It's also a good reminder that when we're feeling overwhelmed, focusing on our breath, right? When we started today, and I just got everyone to breathe slowly and deeply, because it immediately, no matter what else has gone on mentally, breath has the ability to just calm the nervous system. And it's a really good strategy to I don't know, it's like a little chink of light that can then come through into that, that darkness of the overwhelm of we had in front of our face at the beginning.
Yes.
That breath just allows a little gap to open up where we can see something differently.
Yeah, a really easy breathing technique to calm your nervous system when you're in that heightened, overwhelmed state is to do what is called straw breathing. So you just take a deep breath in, and your belly should expand when you take a deep breath in, and then you purse your lips like you were breathing through a straw, blowing through a straw, and you blow out. When you purse your lips, you cannot breathe out quickly. If you imagine yourself blowing through a straw, it is impossible without a lot of force to breathe out quickly. And it's the slow, long exhale that actually calms your nervous system the quickest. So that's a really easy technique to remember. There's lots of calming breathing techniques, but I just find that's a simple one, because when you're in that state, you can't remember what was that breathing technique I was meant to be doing. So straw breathing is a really, really easy one. And it's a good one to teach your kids as well. If you're trying to role model for them what to do when they feel overwhelmed or stressed, it's a really easy one for children. And that can just bring you back. The other thing you can do is tune into your senses if you're feeling overwhelmed, to bring you back to the present moment. So you just notice what you can hear, what you can see, what you can smell. I had to think about that. What you can taste, and then what something around you feels like. So it might be your clothes if you're just sitting there, or whatever, what you're holding, what it feels like. And just bringing your mind into the present can just interrupt some of that overwhelm and the spiral of all those thoughts that we get stuck into, the thoughts and feelings. And remember, I'm having a thought that, I notice I'm having a thought that. So there's some little tips and tricks in the moment. Oh, sorry, I keep clicking on the chat and then it mucks up my slides. Here we go. So some questions for you to come back and reflect on is, how can you take into account your energy levels, capacity, needs and desires when you're deciding where to allocate your energy? You know, the modern society, Western world, success is viewed as consistency and having the same level of productivity and commitment and contribution every day. That is really based on a very masculine way of being. And as women with cycles, we are not consistent every day. And I think the sooner we can accept that, embrace that, and know that that is our strength, the fact that we're up and down, we're cyclical, you know, in line with our hormones, the better. It's just us, it's normal. And I know as little kids, we were often taught that, especially our menstrual cycle was shameful, you know, don't talk about it, hide it, manage it, just don't inconvenience anyone else with it. But actually this whole cycle that's going on within our body is really important in terms of the way that we operate, and expecting ourselves to feel the same, give the same, you know, be as focused, be as motivated, as energetic every day is unrealistic. And we feel like we're failing when we can't. You think, what's wrong with me? I'm so all over the place. I'm flaky. I'm inconsistent. I'm unreliable. But it's not that. It's just you being you, and that's okay.
Interestingly, one of the Mama Thrive series workshops we have coming up later in the year is all about learning to tune in and be more mindful and honouring of the impact that our hormonal cycles have on us. And so I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think it is something that has been ignored, not spoken about. You know, we've been sort of put in this box that says you should just be able to, so ignore that. It's not a thing, you know. So I'm really pleased that we're entering a phase of our development as women in our current society structure where we're beginning to have more conversations about that and accepting of it. Yeah,
because there is actually, and obviously this will be covered in that class, but there is actually a time in the month when you need to rest. Your body is calling you to rest. So, you know, if we ignore that, it's just depleting us further. You can also think about during the day, when are you at your best? I mean, some people are morning people, some people are better at night when the house is quiet. When do you find it easier to focus and get important things done? When do you actually need to be alone, or at least have quieter downtime? And then what boundaries do you need to put in place to protect your well-being? And how can you make space in your life for you? And so Cody was just saying that she's starting to do that. And I think little by little is the key, right? I never say to people, go and rehaul your entire life, because that just inevitably that will fall over after a few weeks and we don't feel good about that. You don't need to do that. Little steps. Let yourself feel successful every step of the way. So find 5 minutes for yourself this week. 5 minutes. Have a cup of tea outside, or read 3 pages of your book, or go to bed 10 minutes earlier. Little things, or go to school pickup 5 minutes earlier and spend 5 minutes in the car just meditating or just breathing. Whatever you need. And then next week, make it 10 minutes or make it 5 minutes. If we set ourselves up for success, we're much more likely to continue and not get discouraged. And if you have guilt around this, then really examine, where's the guilt coming from? So what is the thought that's leading me to feel guilty? What's the should? Because it probably comes back to the perfect mother myth or something along those lines, or something that someone else is expecting from you. What's the should that's making me feel like I'm not meeting an expectation? All right, did it again. So overcoming overwhelm isn't just about being more organized, efficient, or productive, or being a better mum. That's what we tend to think it's about. It's actually about coming back to and living in alignment to your own values and priorities. And it's about, no matter what is happening, being kind and compassionate to yourself. Everything is okay. We're in this for the long haul. And it's about managing your thoughts and then making space for you, your own needs and your own desires. So when you do these things, you should see some of the things in your life fall away, some of the things that are not as important to you, that you've been doing because you feel like you have to, but aren't really that important. And just by having space for ourselves, we feel better. So that's making you less likely to spiral into that really overwhelmed state, and also help you make better decisions around your boundaries and what is a priority to you, but always coming back to what's true for you and not worrying about what everybody else is doing. I know that's much easier said than done, but little by little, right? Little by little. Are there any final comments or questions that anyone wanted to share? Oh, Jennifer says, one of my biggest challenges is working out what it is I need and how to get those needs met. Yeah, that is something I hear from a lot of mums. I would say start really small by just even starting with, how am I feeling today? Asking yourself, maybe in the morning, it can help if you stack it with something that you do regularly, like when you brush your teeth, you'd have a little reminder on your mirror. How do I feel today? Just get into the habit of checking in. And then you might progress to, okay, I'm feeling unmotivated. What do I need to help me with that? I'm feeling tired. All right, maybe I'll just have a sit down for 10 minutes after drop off or whatever it might be. But I think sometimes if we can't, a lot of women have this issue, they can't even identify how they feel because they're so used to focusing on everybody else that we've just forgotten how to check in with ourselves. But start little and then build up. It gets easier the more you practice it, but you might need reminders. You might need to do it at a certain time of the day just to make it a bit of a habit. Could do it when you go to bed, whatever it is, just keep it simple to start with. Anything else?
I would really love to invite Jennifer and Cody, who are here live, to, and if you're listening to the recording, to do this and write it down. It's just to now identify one teeny tiny step that you're taking away from all the amazingness Louise has given us today. But what's one teeny tiny message or one teeny tiny step that you would most like to commit to moving forward from today, that you'd most like to try out in your world to do something differently? So if you're listening to the recording, just take a moment to think of that question, write it down. But for Jennifer and Cody, because you're here, you get to share it with us if you would like to, as a way of honoring that. Okay, so Cody says, I need to spend time thinking about the why behind the guilt. bit of a wow moment, thinking about the good girl idea, and that what I want isn't a priority. Amazing, Cody. That's big, right? I mean, you write that, you just go, that's really big, beautiful, deep stuff for you, and good on you. And I can't wait to see where that goes for you. Jennifer, start putting myself first. Yep. A little bit every single day. Practice. Like the asking for help, the more we practice, the easier it gets. The more you practice putting yourself first a little bit sometimes, the easier it will get. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Anything is good. Just start would be my advice. Do something, because if we do nothing, then this will just become a vague memory. So do something, and then come back to it and have a look again if you want to. As I said, I'll give you Linda will send out the downloadable document if you want the more sort of practical hands-on time management and prioritizing. That's in that document, and this is the underlying things that keep us sucked back into overwhelm all the time.
Amazing. Yep, I will do all that. That will all go out tomorrow. So, Louise, I just want to say a very, very big thank you to you for your time and your energy and your amazing knowledge and insights today. I know I've taken lots of, wonderful things out of it. I know everybody else who's here or catching up on the replay will too. I will also, if you as you said, if anything else comes up, I'll make sure I've put in details of how to find Louise. If you want to connect with her and contact her with any other thoughts or questions after this, always, you're also welcome to reach out to me. Oh, you're very welcome, Jennifer. I'm so glad you made it live. It's always extra special. The real battery's at 4%. Not the personal battery, the real battery. Cody's got to go. Go charge battery. Great to have you here, Cody. And I will also keep you lovely ladies in the loop for future Mama Thrive series workshops. There's all sorts of fabulous things coming up through the year, but it's wonderful to connect, wonderful to have you here. Louise, you're amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. That was really great.
Wonderful. All right, team, I'm going to send you all on your way, and I'll be in touch with the recording. But take care. Look after yourselves. You are magnificent, wonderful women of the world. So make the most of that. Okay. All right.
Bye.
Bye, team.
Bye.